You have a strong body, far stronger than even the captain of the Ginyu Force!
What?
Dragon Ball games come in all shapes and sizes. Some games are brilliant retellings of the original story, while other games have great gameplay and wide rosters. And somewhere in the middle of that you have Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit. It's been a year since I started my channel and talked about Rage & Blast 2, so I thought I'd make it a tradition to talk about a Dragon Ball game in April. I had a pretty big pool of games to choose from, so I decided to go with a game that I've never played before, so I decided on Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit for PS3 and Xbox 360. Burst Limit was initially announced in the December 2007 edition of V-Jump magazine, and it was said to be the series' debut on HD-capable consoles. The producer of the game, Yasuhiro Nishimura, said in an interview that the game wasn't meant to be a fighting game, but a Dragon Ball Z game. The development team wanted the game to be a new expression of the series instead of an extension, as they said other games had been in the past. The game was developed by Dimps, and they've worked on a number of Dragon Ball games both before and after Burst Limit. They've worked on the Budokai and Xenoverse series, as well as Infinite World and Breakers. Some of their extracurricular activities include Sonic Lost World for 3DS and Crash Boom Bang. So you know, swings and roundabouts. Since Burst Limit was developed by Dimps and has very similar gameplay to the Budokai games, you could make an argument that Burst Limit is technically Budokai 6. Budokai 3 was released in 2004, then Shin Budokai and Shin Budokai Another Road released for the PSP in 2006 and 2007 respectively, making them Budokai 4 and 5. The following year, Burst Limit was released. It's definitely the least favourite child of the family, so it had its name changed and it got given the room under the stairs. And by that logic, Dragon Ball Evolution for the PSP is technically Budokai 7, so do with that what you will. While you're contemplating that, we'll move on to the game itself. As I mentioned earlier, Burst Limit is the first game on HD consoles, and it still looks pretty good in 2023. The cel-shaded art style holds up really well, and the character models are a step up from those used for the Budokai series on the last generation of consoles. The aura effects look brilliant here. If anything, they're better than some of the effects in recent games. And during combat, the camera shakes with every hit that you land. While it can put an emphasis on the impact your attacks are having, it can get a bit annoying after a while. The in-game cutscenes are a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them are absolutely gorgeous, and others are less than gorgeous.
Key Blast Cannon! What? Ah! You startled me. No!
Yo! Yo, holy shit, he dead!
But when the game wants to look good, it looks good. The game does a good job of imitating the style of the anime. A personal highlight is characters' backs bulging when you land a heavy smash in battle. It reminds me a lot of 17's fight against Piccolo. The game also features brand new character artwork used for menus and health bar portraits. I don't know why, but Semi-Perfect Cell's picture is so cartoonishly evil.
So this is what lips feel like.
The game has a roster of 21 characters from the series up to the Cell Saga. It's a bit lacking when compared to other games. Budokai 3 had over 40 characters, and we don't even need to bring up Daddy Tenkaichi 3. The character roster also omits a weird selection of characters. The Ginyu Force has been reduced to the gruesome twosome, as only Raccoon and Ginyu himself appear in the game. The game misses out a ton of characters you'd expect it to have, like Dodoria, Zarbon, Android 19, Dr. Gero, and the saviour of Earth himself, Mr. Satan. Oh, but we do get Cyberman. Calm down everyone, we got him, it's fine. The basic combat system is pretty similar to the Budokai games, as you can attack, block, throw, and launch super and ultimate attacks. One thing I did notice is that every character has less super attacks available. They all have 2 super attacks and a few ultimates to choose from. The combo system isn't as fleshed out as it was in the Budokai games. However, Burst Limit comes bursting onto the scene with its own special mechanics. Hey. The first of these being aura actions. During a battle you can enter Aura Spark mode. Your attacks are boosted and your ki slowly drains away. You're able to do specific actions in this state, like launching your opponent and chasing them with a barrage of melee attacks. A little detail I really liked with this mechanic is that when you're winning the button mashing contest and you're defending, you just avoid all of the enemy attacks. Another mechanic that Burst Limit introduces is drama pieces. These are in-game cutscenes that activate when certain battle conditions are met, such as blocking a ki blast, having your health lowered to a certain amount, or when you're being overwhelmed by attacks. Some of the drama pieces that activate are pretty cool, like Vegeta deflecting a ki blast or Piccolo and Cell regenerating a limb to regain an absurd amount of health. And some are a bit underwhelming, like Krillin saying he might die.
Looks like it's do or die! Take this!
Either way, the drama pieces add an extra layer to the battles since partners have intervened in fights before in the show. I'm sure they won't overstay their welcome. The game is split into several modes, consisting of Tutorial Mode, Training Mode, Versus Mode, Trial Mode, and Z Chronicles Mode. I'll work my way through each of these, starting with Tutorial and Training Mode.
I guess that's all you can do. It seems there's just too much of a gap between us. Darn you!
In tutorial mode you play as Gohan in different parts of the story and learn how to play the game. It's a minor detail, but I think it's really cool that the point in which you are in the story depends on the level of the training. Basic training has Piccolo teaching you the basic mechanics and controls like movement and attacking during the Saiyan Saga. Krillin takes you through intermediate training on Namek, and he teaches you about more complicated things like throws and super attacks. And finally, advanced training is taught by Goku during the Android Saga. You'll learn about mechanics specific to burst limit like aura actions and drama pieces. A lot of the training lessons ask you to do one thing and then you immediately finish the lesson. I don't know why it was set up like this. At one point I literally just moved the analog stick and was thrown back to the training menu. And Piccolo explaining the health bars to me is really funny. I want him to teach me how to animation cancel and tap strafe.
This is the health gauge. You win a battle by attacking the enemy until his health is completely gone.
After you complete all the training lessons, you get the Senzu Bean drama piece as a reward. It'll restore health when you're at a certain threshold, but it doesn't restore as much as Cell or Piccolo's regeneration. Training mode is pretty self-explanatory. You get the chance to practice everything you've learned against a CPU opponent. You can set them to do specific actions, or you can have them act like a regular opponent with different difficulty options.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna enjoy this.
The versus mode is also pretty basic. Here you're able to fight against your friends both in person and online. I did try to find an online match, but for some reason there wasn't anyone playing a 16-year-old Dragon Ball game in 2023, no matter how long I waited. You can also abuse the CPU here by fighting it yourself or forcing it to fight another CPU character in a sick twisted Coliseum-like experience. The trial mode gives you 3 games to test your skills in, and none of them are all that exciting to be honest. Survival mode has you face off against enemy after enemy with your health slightly recovering in between fights. You only have to play a little bit of this mode to unlock the next one, so I put the controller down to let the CPU kill me. It's really difficult to lose when your opponent is constantly ducking punches you haven't thrown. After that you unlock time trials. You're timed as you fight through a course of 10 enemies. Try to beat your opponents as quickly as possible to score higher on the leaderboard. Something weird that happened while I was playing this to unlock other modes is that I ended up fighting Frieza like 3 times in a row. After beating a course of time trial mode, you unlock battle point mode. This is pretty much the exact same setup as trial mode, except you score points for landing attacks on your enemies. Fight a course of 10 enemies and see how high you can score.
Well, it seems I underestimated you. And as a little apology, I'm going to show you something. My true power.
One thing that I noticed about this game is the absence of a tournament mode. Considering the original Dragon Ball manga helped popularise the now ever-present tournament arc, you'd think that this game would have one included like the majority of the other Dragon Ball fighting games, but it just doesn't. And now for the beefiest mode of the entire game, Z Chronicles. It's exactly what you'd expect, sort of. It's a retelling of the entire Dragon Ball Z storyline, all the way from the arrival of Raditz to the defeat of Cell. That's right, the game covers all 226 chapters of the Dragon Ball Z manga. Don't worry about that little pink fella, he's just a collective fever dream. As I'm sure you know by now, Burst Limit doesn't cover the Buu Saga, which is kind of pitiful considering the majority of previous Dragon Ball games have at least included characters from the Buu Saga, even if the story mode isn't entirely faithful. Looking at you, Budokai 2. I couldn't find any reason as to why the saga was missed out. I guess it's a pretty long arc, but when you adapt Dragon Ball Z you might as well adapt the whole story. I guess it would make sense if Burst Limit 2 ever came out, but the very next year Dragon Ball Infinite World for the PS2 came out, so I have absolutely no clue what was going on. Anyway, we might as well play through the story that we did get. Funnily enough, the game doesn't provide any background information on the story, which gives me the impression that it's very much a game for existing Dragon Ball fans. It isn't a game that you could recommend to someone to try and get into the Dragon Ball story like the Budokai Tenkaichi games or Kakarot. As with most Dragon Ball games, we start with Raditz arriving on Earth and later progress onto the arrival of Nappa and Vegeta. The Z fighters fall one by one struggling against the Saiyans while they wait for Goku to arrive. And I love the music that plays when Krillin is struggling against Nappa. It doesn't fit the tone of the situation whatsoever, but if anything, it makes it so much funnier.
You monster!
You end up playing as the villain in some fights where they absolutely wash the heroes, so now you too can feel like a piece of shit after murdering all of Goku's friends as Nappa.
Never underestimate us.
Anyway, so all of the Z fighters die against Nappa except Krillin and Gohan, and Goku shows up to clean house. He bodies Nappa and then fights Vegeta, but there's no mention of the Great Ape Vegeta fight or the Spirit Bomb. The Saiyan Saga ends with Goku and Vegeta's being clashed, which is a really odd change. I'm glad that even though they decided to cut the Spirit Bomb, we still get Yamcha being blown up by a Cyberman. At least one thing stays consistent in every timeline. You'd think that they'd at least cover all of the events in the arcs that they didn't cut out. But oh well, onto the Frieza Saga. And we begin this saga with Raccoon vs Vegeta. Wait, so no Qui, Dodoria or Zarbon? We skipped everything about why the Z Fighters are on Namek to begin with, why they're fighting Frieza's army, and we just see Raccoon wreck everyone with absolutely no context. So Raccoon brutalizes a child and poses on him, so Gohan gets his dad to drop his bully. And then Ginyu shows up to fight Goku. So we've skipped Guldo, Berta and Jace, which feels really wrong. Krillin's pose during this cutscene is what I see during sleep paralysis. It was at this point in the game that I noticed that the game reuses a lot of animations during cutscenes, like the melee clashes, gut punches, and someone getting the shit kicked out of them. Anyway, Frieza begins his assault on the Z Fighters. During the ensuing battles, second form Frieza is shocked to see that Krillin is alive, but there's no reason given as to why he's shocked. Fair enough, existing fans will already know that Frieza turned him into a piñata 5 minutes earlier, but new fans won't.
Me too. Show me what you can do.
Alright, this has been going on long enough. Drama pieces have overstayed their welcome. The reason they've been interrupting the video is because they keep interrupting the gameplay. They'll activate at random points during a fight and interrupt the flow of the action. They're a cool concept, but the drama pieces last way too long and ruin the pacing. And half of the time they're just boring. Like a character will say something and get a stat boost. But sometimes your drama pieces will actively hurt your experience. Krillin's activated when I was at low health and one of the effects was a defense decrease. I died immediately to the next hit. Some of them are pretty broken too, like Piccolo and Cell's regeneration I mentioned earlier. They use Ki to regenerate health, and Ki is pretty easy to build in this game, so they tend to get at least 2 whole health bars back. And you better hope that you don't lose a story mission, because when you replay it, you'll have to watch those drama pieces all over again. The sheer amount of times I had to watch them during the Raccoon and Gohan fight is ridiculous. To close on this issue, drama pieces are a cool idea, but poorly executed to the point where they become more of a hindrance than a gameplay feature. So now Goku steps up against Frieza. The way the missions and cutscenes are structured, the game makes it seem like Goku's Spirit Bomb is the catalyst that begins the destruction of Namek. At least Goku's Super Saiyan transformation isn't cut from the game, and the cutscene looks brilliant. We eventually lamp Frieza so hard that he dies, and we get a recap of the events of the story so far, but it shows cutscenes that we haven't been shown in the story mode, like Gohan attacking Raditz and Piccolo sacrificing himself to save Gohan. Well, time to move on to the Android Saga, my personal favourite. And we begin with Goku training Gohan from the Cell games for the appearance of androids 19 and 20. I know Trunks travelled through time, but I didn't think he fucked up the timeline this badly. We immediately jump to Vegeta fighting android 18, so we skip Mecha Frieza, the introduction of future Trunks, androids 19 and 20, okay, that's fine. We then jump straight from the fight with 17 and 18 to Piccolo's fight against Imperfect Cell. So there's no mention of Trunks showing up, Goku's heart virus, or Piccolo fusing with Kami. We get the fusion with Kami transformation for Piccolo, but that's the only reference we get to it. A weird little detail I noticed here is that the combat sounds and grunts from Imperfect Cell are actually from Perfect Cell. This is a weird reversal of the issue from the Budokai Tenkaichi games, where Perfect Cell's grunts and attack sounds come from the Imperfect Cell, since in Japanese, Cell's voice actor remains consistent through all of his forms. We finally meet Trunks, and he's training with Vegeta in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, and he has his Super Saiyan Grade 3 hair, Saiyan armor, and his sword. This combination literally cannot happen in the story. His sword breaks when he fights 18 towards the start of the arc, but his dialogue is hilarious throughout the entire game.
Prepare yourself!
What? Oh, right. You know I can't possibly win. Kill me.
What is Goku doing?
There are more missed story beats between now and the Cell games, such as the Cell Juniors. But eventually Gohan goes Super Saiyan 2 after the death of 16, and the music that plays here is metal as fuck. After we kill Cell, we get another story recap, and it shows us things like Mecha Frieza and the introduction of future Trunks. You must be joking. We get scenes of Gohan and Trunks investigating the second time machine, Trunks and Vegeta coming out of the hyperbolic time chamber, Trunks killing Imperfect Cell in the future, and random cutscenes of Bardock and Broly. This story mode is a fucking mess. One thing I've always liked is what if stories. You know, like what if Minato survived in Naruto, what if my parents loved me, what if future Gohan survived, that kind of thing. Well, after beating Cell, we're given 2 what if sagas, one about Bardock and another about Broly. Seems a bit odd, but fair enough. The first one you can play is the Bardock saga, so we'll start there. So we start with Bardock fighting Frieza before the destruction of planet Vegeta. He ends up killing Frieza and passing out, and ending up on Earth for some reason. He fights both Krillin and Vegeta before eventually fighting Goku. He fights with his son, and then disappears. That's it. So somehow Bardock ended up travelling forward in time and ended up on Earth. I didn't think I'd find anything dumber than the Bardock special where he gets sent back in time, but somehow this exists. So we didn't get the Buu Saga or Mecha Frieza, but we got this. Okay, yeah, time for Broly. From the very little context we're given, I'm assuming this scenario takes place after the first Broly movie, as Broly comes to Earth in search of Goku. He fights his way through Krillin, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, Piccolo, Trunks, and Vegeta before finding Goku. But Goku and Super Saiyan 2 Gohan can't be alive at the same time, as Goku died at the Cell Games. So once again the game changes things without giving any kind of explanation. This saga sucks, but it's still better than Bio Broly. The final fight ends with Broly beating Goku. Then we get the end credit scene, which show Goku going Super Saiyan 2 against Broly. So we don't get to play that part. It's teased for the next game, and we all know how that turned out. These what if sagas are weak. Like, really weak. We don't get any kind of setup for these events, it's just Bardock and Broly arrive on Earth and fight the Z Fighters. Older Dragon Ball games actually made their what if sagas interesting, like Raditz turning good, and Zarbon betraying Frieza by wishing for immortality. Where was the passion for this game? All in all, I think Burst Limit had the potential to be a good game, but a combination of issues prevented it from being anything but average. The drama pieces are an awful mechanic that actively make you hate the game, and the game in general just lacks content. We get a half-baked story mode that's missing a ton of iconic moments from the series, a few challenge modes, and a pathetic roster of characters that all feel the same to play. I understand why this game performed well below expectations considering people were paying full price for this game back in 2007, and at that price, this amount of content is really a punch in the gut. But fortunately, the future is looking pretty bright for Dragon Ball fans.